Hi there, it's time for Bitcoin Wyckoff check and see where Bitcoin price is heading. If you're new to my sessions, these are the 3 key things I'll cover during the session. They're not financial advice, they're for research and discussion with the community here only, and also for educational purpose. So let's start with the weekly chart of BTC. Back in November, I shared that Bitcoin is likely going through a very boring period, and after like almost 8 weeks now, it's still within that boring range, somewhere between the 81k, this yellow level, as well as the blue key level of 91k. So it passed the 91k multiple times over the course of past 8 weeks. However, when the price closed, only last week it managed to close above 91k, but not too high up. All right, it's only a few hundred points higher. This week, the bulls is still trying to maintain such a level. All right, it's not too far from where it closed last week. There's still about 29 hours left for this week's candle. Let's see whether the bulls are successful in closing this around 91k. So what do we expect next? Like I shared before, if Bitcoin is really coming down for accumulation, it may first show a sign of weakness somewhere below the 81k and above or close to 74k key level, this light blue key level. That's what it did back in the time in March last year. All right, and further than that, if capital is really flowing out of Bitcoin, it may go further down to really start the actual accumulation. All right, that's only the first stop before the accumulation, and this may not even appear, right? Because if it does come down straight to accumulation and no more rebound in between, then this is what happened over here. All right, it's just happened at a level higher than what happened over here back in March, April 2025. All right, so this is the first scenario. This last point of supply where whales offload everything to whoever buying the dip. When we switch to a line chart, you see this jagged line. This may well be that LPSY when it comes down. Currently, it doesn't look like anything of a rebound because it's been sideways trading for too long. Again, it's part of the same path, whether it end up like this or it comes like this. The story, when it gets to the end, is the same. Accumulate at a lower level. So after scenario 1, we've got the second scenario. People always ask me, hey, you always focus on the negative side of things. Oh, let's do a positive one, right? People have been talking about relief rallies, and maybe even higher highs than the upthrust, back in October or September last year. The first one, less positive but still positive, is that this last one of supply rebound comes back to challenge the 104k. That's where this period, this horizontal or sideways trading period, back in May, June last year, stayed along. Okay, that's the first slightly positive scenario before it comes back down to the 91k. Second one, even more positive, that this period may be a reaccumulation, much like what it did over here after it reaccumulated for 7-8 weeks. Eventually it pumped to the upthrust. Just to note that during the buying climax stage, the initial FOMO stage, look at these volume bars, right? They are very tall, and when it gets to the point of the later FOMO, look at these bars, these white bars. They are much shorter. They're getting shorter and shorter. Well, cumulatively, they stack up to somewhat similar to this stage, during the first or initial climb. But subsequently, these climbs, look at these volume bars over here. They are getting smaller or shorter and shorter. So that tells that the demand is not as strong as the previous periods. Okay? Currently, whenever we've got white candles, they are slightly taller than the upthrust period. They're more close to this stage from that short-term accumulation going up, the very first leg. All right? It's getting like that. So that's why I said there may be a chance that it comes back to challenge this level of 125, 126K if this is really a reaccumulation. So either an LPSY or reaccumulation. So those two are the positive cases. One very positive and the other slightly. The key here for Bitcoin, I believe, is how far or how fearful people would be with all the, you can say, news or noises, or the skepticism about the dollar de-dollarization in simple terms, or money capital fleeing to gold or silver or even copper now. So what is it going to be like for BTC? It's a real test. I already shared a few weeks back in a video talking about the Japanese interest rate staying at a level we haven't seen since the born or even before the born of BTC. All right, this is the very first time BTC going through that event. So I believe quite a bit of investors are a bit worried, what's going to happen to crypto, including BTC. That's why it's a bit like undecided right now, even though the market across the board is like a risk-off mode, hiding towards the precious metals. Bitcoin isn't gaining any traction because the biggest uncertainty is the Japanese interest rate, or carry trade, as you have heard, that is like clouds hovering on top of BTC. Once that's cleared, this potential will get higher. All right, so that's the big picture. If it comes down, back to the pessimistic scenario, to accumulate, I hope we see it, not going further below the mid 50K. That was when March 2024 to October 2024, that reaccumulation happened before it climbed to the buying climax back in December 2024. All right, but who knows, right? The long-term playground is tracking all this. Obviously, people will say it will never go back to the 22, 23 low. Let's hope so, but I'll keep my mind open. If it does come down, it's not going to surprise us because these were the levels already after the COVID money pump. All right, of course, there's still money coming out, but is it like 4 times, 5 times the money coming out? Not really, right? Let's go to the daily chart. Here, we see the downtrend being confirmed, we already talked about. Just that it got rejected somewhere close to these intermediate levels, all right? Especially this red one that clearly rejected the price surge. That's around 94K 400. And as I said, there are a couple of dates we're looking at right now. Besides this one already confirmed on near Jan 4th, the next one coming, because the price is currently below this blue key level of 91K, will be near the end of this month or beginning of next month. So by that point, the bulls and the bears has to confirm, whether this uptrend along this yellow dash line is going to continue, or is it going to break outside of this line and once again go back to the mid 80 or even like low 80 to test those levels, right? Like we said, it's probably going to go down to test the levels of those sign of weakness back in March 2025. That's the pessimistic scenario. We'll soon get to know, right? If it does, if the bulls successfully defended this support and breaks above the 91K once again, come to challenge the purple and the red dashed lines by mid-Feb, or if it's the case of the red line along this uptrend, that's pointing towards the 1st of March. So somewhere between mid-Feb to late Feb or beginning of March, there is another time window for the bulls and bears to confirm, hey, are we still going to continue with the game towards the north? Alright, looking at the volume, again, the past 3 days, pretty much the bulls and the bears are battling very hard along this 91K. You see very short candlestick body. Today it was even across. There's still only 4 hours left. It's weekend again, so give it a little benefit of doubt with this low, very low volume. But the past few days, especially yesterday and the day before, the volume isn't too low. Alright? It means buying the dip activity is pretty strong. Looking at these wicks, whenever the price comes down to below 90K, there were quite some buying. But that doesn't mean the force going up is going to be very strong immediately. Alright, definitely there looks like there are pretty much a bunch of people accumulating at this range. Look at or compare what happened over here. Back that time, those were white candles. Currently we've got red candles. So it's more like this like back in December 2025 now. Alright, so it all depends on how this line can be defended. That is very key. If you're interested to get access to these sessions 2 days earlier than the others, feel free to join the channel membership. That's all for BTC.